Alright, so I've got everything loaded up here. Just took a second to make sure everything in the stream is still running okay, and it looks like it is. So, once you're all loaded up and ready to go, so am I.
Yep.
So let's get going in 3, 2, 1, go. Alright everyone, welcome to iCCup Television. This is Ro16 with Elaine Sun alongside. Thank you for tuning in for our coverage of the Gigabyte StarsWar 6. As you can see on the screen that we have the little one as the yellow Terran in the right hand position on Metalopolis. Over here on the left we do have Ro16. Would like to take a moment to thank Gigabyte for sponsoring this wonderful tournament. They make really high-end motherboards that are top quality, and you can visit them at gigabyte.com. You can see all sorts of other links over there on the right side of the screen. That'll stay up there for just a minute here at the start of the game. And cross positions on Metalopolis.
Gigabyte is my favorite motherboard company by far, and their new Killer series is super cool. I mean, it's made for gamers. There's an ammo clip for a North Bridge. It doesn't get much cooler than the Killer series as far as motherboards are concerned.
Yeah, I mean, they supply the top-level computer makers with their products, including Alienware and some other really high-end companies. So they're very reliable. If you're building a computer, you do want to check them out over at gigabyte.com. And of course, they're sponsoring this tournament with some of the top names in the world going on. So it's quite nice to have them on board sponsoring this tournament. And we see, nothing really that crazy going on so far in the early game. Watching TLO very carefully, though, because, he's TLO. And it'll be curious to see how much Ro16 is aggressive about his scouting, because if he's really intent on getting in there and staying there as long as possible with his probe, then that probably give us an idea that he has an idea of the TLO style, because if he just goes in, checks things out, and then runs away before it dies, maybe he could get caught off guard, because TLO is one of those guys where you think that you just want to leave the worker in there for as long as possible, even if it dies, because you want to see every bit of information that you can, just to give you any clues on what he might be doing. TLO is starting off rather standard with just a no-gas expansion so far, and Ro16 is going to take that information and just back off, but question is that really all that he's doing?
I do want to mention that since this map pool is actually decided a long time ago, this is the original version of Metalopolis. Close positions were possible, which is why I'm slightly surprised that TLO went for the 1-Rax expansion, because he did not actually scout close positions. Perhaps he assumed that this was the updated map and that close positions were not possible. Luckily, they are in cross position, so it's not actually a danger, but that was a potential threat. So it could have been a very daring move. For now, though, it's really standard since they are cross positions. It's quite safe to go ahead and grab this extra command center. Start pumping out double SCVs.
Yeah, and with this really quick command center, he's going to have a nice advantage. He did go for the barracks after the command center as opposed to the factory. Something that I point out a lot of times on stream because people don't always realize when you see a top-level programmer do that. Fast expansion build directly into double gas into a factory. The factory, after a quick expansion, means you're not going to get any units out of it for quite some time, and it makes you very vulnerable. So what TLO is doing is the much safer route, and it's what we usually see him do off of these types of strategies. And, getting the Marines out, getting some units out just to defend against some early pressure. But over on the other side of the map, we can see that Ro16 did drop a Nexus, so he's probably not going to be applying too much early pressure. He's just going to get his own expansion up, and the question is who's going to tech faster, because neither player are really teching too much. We see some sentries on the way for Ro16. TLO did grab his second refinery, so if he does scout out the expansion of his opponent, he might be able to get started into that tech with his factory. But for now, both players just sort of stalling out on their Tier 1 units, playing it safe at the beginning of the game.
Well, Ro16 actually did respond really appropriately to TLO's expansion by dropping his own. He actually has been continuously chrono boosting his warp gate up research so that he did get it out as soon as possible. Perhaps he could go for a 2-base timing push immediately after this, start building those unit numbers as soon as possible. He's a little bit ahead in worker count because he did spend some chrono boosts on workers, but TLO should catch up fairly quickly because he does have 2 orbital commands up. He is going for the 3 racks build. with actually 3 tech labs instead of, you know, the standard 1 tech lab, 2 reactors. So he's going for a more marauder-heavy opening with a concussive shell, which is actually quite powerful against Protoss, especially against the gateway unit composition that Love CD is going for.
It'll be interesting to see if Love CD actually drops the robo here, if he does go into just the pure gateway style, because what TLO is doing is going to be very good against like a 2-base gateway pressure with this many tech labs, getting a high marauder count and that concussive shell, knowing that TLO can micro, something that he's really good at. He'll have a nice advantage. And look at this, Love CD actually going for the armor upgrade. He's going to expect a lot of Marines like you would from a normal Terran player. So it looks like with this armor upgrade running, we should see a couple more gateways here and go for some really heavy Zealot, Stalker, Sentry, just pure gateway, because that's usually what you do against Terran. You get the armor upgrade. It helps so much against a mostly Marine army. But as we can see, TLO's producing 3 Marauders at a time, so he's actually going to be in a really good spot here with his high Marauder count. Love CD probably wanted to go for that weapons upgrade if he knew what was going on, but now he's going to have a little bit of an issue with this Terran army as it pushes forward. Stimpak isn't done yet. That's going to be the one problem with this push by TLO, and the reason why he's not going to commit fully just yet, but he is applying some pressure, making Love CD a little bit wary. And he's still sitting on just 4 gateways, even though he does have his Nexus up. So actually he is going to transition into a Twilight Council. And is he going to be going for Dark Templars or maybe really quick Storm?
Well, actually, I don't know what he plans to do. I think he might actually go for a Zealot Charge, because this early in the game he's going for a fairly Zealot-heavy composition. Actually, the armor upgrade is pretty great, because even though TLO is going for fairly Marauder heavy, there are plenty of Marines, so with that armor upgrade and a Guardian Shield, all of those units will have 3 armor, so Marines will only do 3 damage to them.
Yeah, he is actually dropping a second Forge at the same time, so he's going to be able to start those double upgrades now that Twilight Council finished. So maybe that's just for the upgrades. Going for, you know, Gateway Army with really heavy upgrades can be quite effective. And going for the armor first helps when you're going for that sort of a defensive build, because a lot of players will apply a lot of pressure onto you with the Marines. But if you look back into TLO's base, he's only got the 3 barracks and a factory at this point, so he's not making a ton of units either. And in the center of the map we see some great force fields there by Love CD, chopping off a decent portion of TLO's army there, and leaving the rest of these Marauders caught in the back, unable to really do much. So Love CD takes out a good portion of units there and then just walks away. Nice control there by him, and that's going to make TLO a little bit more careful about pushing across the map. But he does have his 3rd base just finishing, so he probably doesn't care too much about not being able to do that anyways.
He is actually chrono boosting out Zealot legs, so I think he's going for a Zealot heavy timing push, although he is transitioning into robotic facility units, which is a great decision since TLO seems to be sticking pretty much completely with bio. I'm probably going to have to back that up with some medevacs soon enough, because he is building this starport, and as well as the reactor on his factory, which I assume he will switch with the starport immediately. Getting his +1 to weapons, which is actually extremely necessary against the combination of +1 armor and Guardian Shield. It's actually kind of strange. We don't usually see this Zealot Charge timing push from a lot of people.
Yeah, it's interesting because of the fact that you don't see this Marauder heavy style that much anymore. Everybody, you know, tends to like Marines a whole lot more just because their effectiveness with Stimpak. They've got such high DPS, they're so cheap, you can rebuild them so quickly. Used to see this Marauder play way back in the beta, just because of the fact that they're so good at tearing down Stalkers and buildings. When you get Marauders into medevacs, you could harass bases very effectively. But this Zealot Charge is going to be quite effective against these Marauders now that the Zealots do hit when charging, even when they get shot by that concussive shells. So Marauders have a hard time taking out that many Zealots, and they will be able to do their DPS a lot more effectively, so TLO looking like he might be in a bit of trouble here against this many charge lots.
Yeah, this many charge lots with, you know, only 1 bunker completed with no units inside, he's looking in a lot of trouble. And Marauders aren't the greatest against charge lots, having to pull all of his workers right now to deal with this push, but, you know, SCVs are not great against Zealots, and I'm really worried because the numbers look pretty good for TLO, but he has to be extremely careful about micro. He cannot overstim since he has no medevacs out on the field. It looks like Love CD is winning. Oh, and he does actually GG out of this.
Yeah, so well played there by Love CD. He wasn't quite expecting what TLO went for, but his build wound up kind of countering it anyways. So he wasn't too concerned that really high Zealot count with the charge, getting those quick upgrades, was going to do really well against most bio armies anyway. And the fact that TLO went for that high Marauder count just made it a little bit easier for him. So congratulations to him. He's going to take the first game in this series.
I think when TLO pushed out with the early push, a probe and stalker of Love CDs actually spotted that he had, I think at that time in the game, at the point of the game, it was a few too many Marauders to be producing off of only a single barracks with tech labs, so I think he assumed that there were multiple tech labs up and that TLO might try for a more Marauder heavy composition. So I think that actually may have caused him to go with Charge instead of Blink Stalker, because he actually decided to tech into Blink afterward. And you see that Charge was obviously the most effective upgrade there.
Yeah, you can see he was starting to make some Immortals after he saw the really high Marauder count anyways. So he's going to have Charge, Blink, a lot of Zealots with some Stalkers backing it up, and then Immortals in the background as well. So he's doing a really good job of reacting to what he saw. And really strong play from him. But we'll see how TLO does here in game number 2. Give me a second to make sure everything's set up and load up the next game. We'll be taking a quick commercial break, and then we'll get started on game number 2 between Love CD and the Little One. So stay tuned, we'll be right back. Okay, so apparently the game sound was super quiet, even though I turned it up. So let's see if that's any better. Why is it so quiet? StarCraft 2 just randomly is quieter today, and I don't know why. So let's try that. Alright, that should be a little bit better. Hopefully. Do you have the game loaded up?